Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Man Dates with Guitar Greats. Today we have definitely a fun experience. A long-time friend of mine, a very talented guitar player, and we're going to sit and we're going to talk about the kind of benefits of learning different styles of music and how education and the more formal side of understanding music and development of our playing has helped us both personally in our playing life, but also career-wise, how this has been beneficial to us. So I want to say a huge welcome to my good friend, Mr. Dan Smith. How's it going, Dad?
Yeah, man, not bad. It is hot in Manchester. I can't say the north when I'm talking to you, can I?
No, that is technically true. Technically, it's actually hot here too as well. So, yeah, we've got our second summer. I'm super excited about it. Stuck in my studio that doesn't have any windows.
Oh,
but I've got an aircon
nice.
unit, so if it gets too hot, I can sort that out. How's quarantine / lockdown / worldwide pandemic and life misery, not gigging and all? How's that treating you?
It's not. It's been interesting. I feel like there's much like the virus is coming in waves. I feel like there's sort of motivational waves that sort of happen. Initially, I think it was with the kind of like 3-week sort of waiting for information thing. When you had new information and these were the rules and all that, I think there's like a burst of motivation for some reason. It's like, right, I've got some information. I know where I'm at. I know where things are at. I'm going to do some stuff. And then towards the end of that 3 weeks, you start to lull a bit and then you get some new information and then, But now, we're kind of, there sort of isn't really, I mean, other than, Manchester being a major incident at the moment.
Yeah, actually, I forgot
there isn't
about
really that kind of sort of information coming, so it kind of feels like everything else has started up, but the things like gigging and teaching and things are not quite there. So strange.
Yeah, so who cares about musicians, right? Governments don't care about musicians. We'll just sort of we'll make do somehow. I guess you and I, compared to a lot of musicians out there, are relatively lucky in terms of our careers because we are able to make a little bit of money in other ways. I feel for my friends that rely 100% solely on gigging. I know gigging is obviously a big part of the stuff you do, but why don't we use that as an opportunity to tell people a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. I am a guitar player. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on here. I play current band situation. I play with the Swing Commanders, which is like a kind of 40s swing, western swing, jazz, blues, rock and roll sort of. I guess you could put it under the umbrella of vintage, but it gets a bit polka dots and cupcakes. Then I'm also 1/4, I guess, of the Guitar Hour podcast.
Yeah. But a founding member. Yeah. I'm sure there is. If I went back into the Facebook kind of archives from like years ago, I'm sure there's a post of me going, I kind of want to do something that's like a cross between Top Gear and Wayne's World, like ages and ages ago, because obviously it was a live stream before the podcast. But I do bits of stuff online. I've got a couple of things out with Lick Library. I'm supposed to have been working on a tutorial during this time, which I have been doing, but like I say, motivation and that. Tell me about it.
So I think general sort of balancing musician between gigging and teaching and, trying to make a stable living out of it, I guess.
Sure. And you have, in terms of your long-term history on the instrument, I know you did, we talked about this, I'm sure, actually, when I had you on the 10-hour stream, but you did cruise ships and things like that. So, you are what I would describe as a long-time professional working guitar player, not like the kind of thing that most people grow up wanting to be when they play guitar. That's something that you realise is a viable career. I'm sure there probably was a time where you grew up wanting to be Steve Vai, but then you went out into the kind of working man's world of guitar playing, the kind of unsung heroes of guitar. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about how that happened.
That's interesting, actually, because you said at one point you wanted to be Steve Vai. I did have the sort of Vai, Satriani and all that kind of phase, but I was probably about 15, 16, I think. When I was 19, when I went to university, I wanted to be Steve Lukather, not Steve Vai.
Good choice.
Probably says quite a bit. But so I did the university thing at Salford, which was popular music, and the course was popular music and recording. But given the pathways when you get to like the second year, third year, I basically tell people it's popular music and performance because I chose to do the performance side rather than So I was on the other side of the glass being recorded rather than, the guy twisting the dials and stuff. And then after that, taught for about a year, and then went on cruise ships for like 3 years, which was really, really kind of eye-opening in terms of skill sets and other musicians, and you're meeting people from around the world. You're meeting people that are kind of maybe taking a break from like American music school, so you get a bit of a sense of like, well, the differences between the sort of UK and US and other places.
It's funny because that was something that I absolutely wanted to do, and for all of those reasons. I remember reading, I can't remember the name of it, but Martin Taylor's autobiography. He talks about it was going on cruise ships and doing that really sort of honed his skills as a jazz musician. What in terms of that as a line of work for anyone watching that is interested in that side of things, what sort of skill sets are you talking about needing when you do something like that?
Well, there's the obvious, there's obvious things like reading, being able to read music, sight reading. Although I'll get onto that in a sec. But basically, by the time I'd got to, I think my second, like different ships have sort of different need for you. Now, the job I was doing was just showband guitarist, which it means that you're playing in like a sort of mini orchestra, which it could, depending on some ships, it could just be 5 people, it could be 7, it could be 10, depending on, money and things. But that job title changed almost overnight at one point to utility guitarist, right, which then included things like playing little solo sets,
right,
for various things, or basically it's like, does somebody need something? Have a guitarist. So towards the end of it, like anything that I had, any sort of skill set that I had, pretty much got used somewhere. There isn't really anything that sort of didn't get used. Anything that was like, because you've got obviously the reading aspect. You might do jazz sets, which might just be lead sheets, so it's more improvisation and just somebody's taking the melody and then solos and then an outro, sort of pretty off the cuff sort of thing, and just people call tunes.
And you can be pretty relaxed about those, I imagine. Sorry to interrupt, but I like the idea of doing something like that, because I imagine it's not like sitting in a jazz club where the audience is all there to listen to the jazz. You're playing to an audience of people that are just happy that there's some music in the background. So I imagine you can have a lot of fun.
Can't go anywhere.
Yeah, just following them around the ship, just playing giant steps at them. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that kind of thing. Then they had big band sets, which you're basically sort of doing the Freddie Green kind of thing. It's big band sets. The guitarist role in that situation is both minimal and there you go. Is like you basically just rhythm section. So that was quite a nice. Those were quite a nice sort of break. Although we can talk about charts and things, but there's some kind of like it's not long division. It's the opposite of long division. It's like you've got all these chords, but basically it's like if I just play these 2 notes, that covers all those chords. I don't have to do anything. I just sit here and let everyone else move around me, which is a skill set in itself to be able to do that. Then you have like production shows, so much like mini versions of like a West End thing with dancers and things like that with tracks. You have guest entertainers, which just fly on, give you the music pretty much at the rehearsal, and you've got maybe 10 minutes to look for anything that could be a
something that
sort
needs
of a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, exactly. And then and then you play the show that night.
Sure.
That is probably the biggest reading bit, because if you get like your production shows, they're all on track anyway. But if you say you join the ship on a Monday and that particular show is not until Thursday, you've got time. Sure. You've got downtime to kind of look at things and things like that. And then solo sets. Live band karaoke, which interestingly, from a reading perspective, is probably worse because if you most of it is obviously tunes that you all have heard of, but if you've ever seen like an AC/DC tune written out in notation, it's just like this G G G, these like massive chords. Or the solo from Jump written out in notation with these like big.
It just makes me go like, Who thought that was a good idea? What person arranging this went, you know what we need to do? You know what's going to really help the guitar player here? Let's write out G, 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 G as massive chords in standard notation. Like, that's not a guitar player that's done that. Writing the fucking solo out from jump. Oh, this will really help that guitar player nail this solo.
Yeah, good luck, kids, you know.
Amazing.
I mean, the perk is that it was kind of the same pool of tunes that came up. Every now and again, something like that would come up and you'd be like, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then the solo set thing, which was a nightmare at first because I didn't have, at the time, I didn't have any sort of repertoire. And I think there are some people that think solo piano, solo guitar, exactly the same thing. I'm not saying playing solo piano is easy, but you've got 10 fingers and a pedal.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? If you want, you could just go chord, play the melody.
Yeah.
Chord. You know. Sorry to any piano players out there. I know it's more difficult.
Yeah,
than that.
well, no, it's like I love piano, and I keep talking about this online, saying that I wish I could turn back time and put my more time into developing my ability to play the piano, because it's not as it's nowhere near as cool an instrument as the guitar. I don't think it is, but it's far more musically capable. You know, you're so much more self-sufficient as a piano player. It's impossible for you not to really understand and delve into harmony and have a real nice visual understanding of harmony in a way that's totally removed from the way we have a visual understanding of harmony on the guitar. It's patterns on the guitar, right? It's so easy to transpose things on the guitar. As a piano player, it's a little bit more in depth with things, and it's a ridiculous skill level, and I'll never speak ill of a piano player again, unless I'm comparing them to an organ player, in which case, piano players, you've got nothing. That kind of cruise type work. Would you then sort of describe it as high pressure? Is that the sort of thing that you would caution people from going into that?
I considered it at the time like I have to be careful saying this because somebody got really offended once, but I sort of likened it to like going to university and then it's almost like some sort of like national service. It's like you're going straight into all this, you know, all these different musical things, and anything you've learned is kind of is being used. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of I think maybe back in the day you could just sort of walk out of, you know, school and do loads of these different jobs. They were just available.
Yeah.
But with obviously the climate now is different. But I would recommend it. I think it's probably like a really intense time for learning, because you're playing every single night, and then if something goes wrong one night, you're basically back. You don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks until you're playing with that band again. You know, you're sort of back on the horse the day after. There is like pressure to some degree, but I think it depends on a few things. I think it depends on who your MD is, what company you're working for. There are a lot of rules,
right,
about conducting yourself and what you can and can't wear in certain places.
Right.
Lots of training and other things involved. But I think if you were, I mean, obviously now is not the time to be making plans, but
yeah.
I would recommend it for like a couple of years, maybe, for, you know, somebody that is interested in being that kind of player. The only downside, potentially, is that for a while, everybody just thought I was at sea. So when I stopped doing cruise ships, people just assume that that's where you are. So they're not going to call you for gigs or shows or whatever, because it's like, where in the world are you? And it's like, I'm in Manchester.
Yeah, dying for a gig, you know. Sat here, no one's calling me.
It's a weird one. It's like, you know, straight out of university, I went straight into like a really busy sort of teaching job, teaching 6 days a week. And then I went straight into that. So that sort of networking thing that maybe a lot of people do off the back of university, I didn't really do. I just went straight into work, you know.
Which is, I mean, probably the right way to do things. I took a very different career path, but I really focused when I was at university on this idea that the day I walk out of here, the day I finish here, I have to have work. I have to have a job. I have to have something lined up. I have to be making money. I've got rent to pay. I've got, at the time I didn't have a family to support, but, you know, I've got commitments. And if I can't meet those commitments, the only outcome of that is me leaving. I'd have to leave London and go back home to Ipswich. And I mean, that would be it. That's career suicide. That's not going to happen. And I feel bad because I kind of tried to instill these ideas into everyone else that I was at uni with, but a lot of them were just like, no, I'm going to focus on the course now, and then afterwards I'll start taking that stuff more seriously. But now's my chance to really focus on education, and most of those guys have had to leave London, and that's a terrible shame. I want to keep you on the cruise ship thing just for a second longer though, because let's not treat this like an educational thing as much as it could be a thing that involves some sort of dirt as well. Let's go Motley Crue the Dirt or David Lee Roth Crazy from the Sun on it. Give us a horror story. You must have had something horrifying happen on a ship.
One that applies with YouTube TOS.
Yeah. Actually, no, I don't really care.
Oh, I'm not. It's not my story to tell. I mean, it's not necessarily a horror story, but it's maybe something about sort of maybe performance anxiety. There was I've told this story before, but there's a thing called the Welcome Aboard show where it's the first thing that happens in a cruise, and then people basically come and watch this show, and it's the entertainment team's chance to go, this is all the stuff that we have, this is what's available while you're on the ship, this week or whatever. And part of that was playing, there's like a little song at the beginning with dancers and stuff, so they get introduced, and then the cruise director comes out, you're playing people on and off, like Letterman or whatever. Part of that was comedians. There's like a comedy club at the back of a lot of ships, so one of the comedians comes out and he does a bit with guitar. The ship at the time, I think, was out of Alabama. So he used to make a lot of jokes about people from Arkansas. And then there's a bit where he plays a bit of like the Julian Banjos thing. And the gag is that I then play it from the pit, and he's like, wise guy or whatever. And then he's like, follow this, and then play some kind of trash. And then I'm supposed to absolutely, take him to school.
Right.
Now, I got so inside my head about that.
Yeah.
That I, sort of stood up, played this big A power chord, and then proceeded to try and play, something kind of sort of rock and roll semi-shred kind of thing. And it was really weird. My brain was like here, but my fingers were sort of like offset.
Right.
So nothing was lining up. And the harder I tried, the worse it got. And it was just like a big mush of like nothing. I don't think I hit any notes. Yeah. It was just like, and then just sort of played a chord at the end, and people clapped.
But because of course they do.
So, well, yeah, exactly. It was awful. It was awful. But anyway, so out of the back of the theatre doors is like the gift shops and stuff. And then the morning after, I went down to breakfast, and I saw two girls that worked at the gift shop, and they're like, "Oh, you're the new guitarist. You're really bad."
That's not going to help.
I was already feeling bad about it. I was already feeling bad, and then it took like this guy. Obviously, I had to wait until the next Welcome Aboard show to do the bit again.
Yeah.
To like find redemption. It was so bad, and it's just me like stood, cranked up to 11 throughout the front speakers, light on me, just absolutely binning it.
I've a similar tune for me is I had to play Prince's Alphabet Street. I'm sure it was Alphabet Street. There's a unison picking part in there with the bass as it goes out of the chorus. Bum bum bum. And I'm used to standing up and playing like Malmsteen tunes and all the rock stuff that I was into, but there was something about that particular unison part that really got in my head. And the amount of times that I consistently made an absolute arse out of myself trying to stand up on stage, spotlight it, and play that just simple unison part. But yeah, that kind of it's like performance anxiety, isn't it? You're just in your head, and there's nothing that you can do that will get you away from that. I think that's probably one of the hardest and most stressful things to overcome. I'm still relatively bad with the kind of red light fever thing. When as soon as you hit record. Unless it's talking, in which case I'll just talk and talk and talk. That's fine. To cover up from the fact that I don't like playing. Yeah. So, I mean, why did you come out of that then? Why did you leave the cruise ship thing and come back home? And because you've not been back to it. How long ago was that you were doing that?
Like 6 years.
Right.
Pretty much 5. Yeah, about 6 years.
Yeah.
I think it just got to a point where the cruises that I was on, I'd kind of been to the places, and the actual routine of it at all had kind of got a bit kind of samey. The other thing was, as far as like the learning curve went in that situation, I kind of feel like it sort of was like obviously really exciting and like in the beginning, but that kind of leveled out a little bit.
And the other thing is the kind of social and the life aspect thing of it. It's a very, very specific lifestyle.
Sure.
And it's a bit like high school in a sense, in that there's like all these little cliques and all these little rules, and you can see these little bubbles and things. And once it's like once the sort of veil has been pulled down and you can see all that kind of stuff, it just gets really annoying. So you can't like, it's like you either play by the rules or you sort of, end up being this sort of bitter old musician hermit guy that's just like, I don't like this job, but I'm going to keep doing it for years anyway.
Hello.
Yeah, it was quite a few things that were like, it's probably time to, to sort of and you basically have to say, this is my last contract and mean it, because there are so many people that go, this is my last contract, and then you get off and then your agent or whatever like dangles do you want 4 months of steady work in front of you and then you go back. So
yeah.
So it was just trying to, build something else up.
Nature of being self-employed, right? Like, it's only been in this last year in my career that I've been able to turn down a lot of pretty high-profile stuff, and it's for no reason other than, well, I've done that for a long time, and why be busier than I need to be? Like, pass that job on to someone else that really needs it now, because I've got other things on. So that's nice that you managed to walk away from that and just be like, yeah, I'm not going back to that.
Yeah, I mean, there is the option if people are interested and they don't want to make the massive sort of commitment. You can do like short contracts. Like I've been offered stuff for like 3 or 4 weeks here and there, which is like cover between somebody leaving and someone else joining.
Right.
I'm not sure of the rules about whether they need someone a bit seasoned to do that, because obviously you just need to be able to hit the ground running, not cause any trouble, and then leave again basically.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's use that as a springboard to get onto what I really wanted to talk about today. I mean, I definitely wanted to talk about that stuff. You and I like talking about education, and because we're both jack of all trades, right? We play lots of different styles of music. I remember before you joined the Swing Commanders, you knew that I kind of had a thing for the Western Swing thing, and you said, I think I'm going to go for this audition for this Western Swing band. What do you think? And I'm like, absolutely, go and do it. You'll have an absolute blast. And you're like, I don't really know that much about Western Swing. And I'm like, you'll get it. If anyone will get it, you'll get it. And you threw yourself into that world, and now you're a like significant. I mean, at the time when you asked me that, I could play a bit of Western Swing. Now you're a fully seasoned professional Western Swing guitar player, much better swing guitar player than I am. What do you think about like skill sets that are required for kind of turning your hand to new genres like that? Like, let's talk about that. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I went to university, I was, I wanted to be like Steve Lukather or Larry Carlton. I didn't really go to university sort of with my like colours nailed to the mast. This is the kind of, this is the kind of guitar player I'm going to be. I'm only going to play metal, or I'm only going to play this, or I'm just going to be a songwriter. I just wanted to be a player.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I think when I was younger, I say younger, I didn't start playing until I was like 14, but I was massively interested in like everything. So if I heard like a little guitar part on a certain, Michael Jackson tune, I'd be like, oh man, that's cool. I just would find everything interesting. And it wasn't like, I'm not listening to that because of this or this. It was just like, oh, that's cool. Let's go there. So when it came to this, the Swing Commanders thing and the sort of audition and stuff, it wasn't a style that I'd really heard of, because it is mega niche, really. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's even like if you try and think about what is like pure kind of Western swing music, even that is like, there's a lot of things under the bracket, but they all the style itself takes from different places. Sure. It's a really hard thing to kind of pin down. So when I was sort of doing research and stuff, my brain was kind of like trying to basically, like, if you imagine like a massive circle, which is music, and then trying to kind of zone in and like heard these different things that I'd already had a bit of experience of, to go, oh, well, it's kind of like that and it's kind of like that. So in my head, it was sort of, it's like a bit country, bit jazz, bit swing, little bits of blues in there, and then a little bit of sort of gypsy jazz with some of the rhythm stuff. So it's kind of like all these sort of separate things. And then, but what I also did is, in my mind, I kind of put a ceiling on things. It's like a harmonic ceiling. So it's kind of like like you're not really going to hear like the altered scale very much, if ever. Do you know what I mean? You're just not really going to hear that. You're not really going to hear something like a Lydian dominant thing. They're probably just going to throw a whole tone at it.
Yeah, I love the whole tone. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like, so in my head, I'm like, right, well, what is the essence? What do these guys do? And what do I already have that I can just sort of go, oh, well, I've already got some of that. It's just adding this on top.
Yep.
If that makes sense. It's kind of, it's taking little elements. Well, I think what I used to do actually when I was probably 18, 19, I'd have these little stints of like maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months of just listening to either one artist or one band or one thing and going, what is it that they do that I think is cool? And then taking that and then sort of like tossing them aside. And then doing the same thing with something else, being like, oh, what is it that they do? That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just amassing these little bits of
it's hardly a shock for people to hear that I'm exactly the same, I've done nothing but Clint Strong stuff on my YouTube channel for the last couple of weeks, and I've just thrown myself into that. I'd listened to Clint a ton like a few years back, but these last couple of weeks, that's like all I want to digest. And if you look at my kick yourself forward 6 months, look at my channel, there won't be any Clint Strong on there then. I won't be saying his name or anything like that, but I see massive value to that because I'm gonna, over these next the last 2 weeks and probably 2 more from this, I'll just be absorbing stuff. I'll just be like letting these influences kind of come in and start to mature a little bit, let them ferment, sit in the back of my mind, and over the next 6 months they should sort of start to subconsciously come into my own musical ear, if you like.
Yeah, man, big time. I think the other thing is, like, at the minute I'm kind of on a bit of a sort of monastery kick, which is he's kind of like, he's sort of down as like a swing guy, but he's got all this other stuff like going, like lots of kind of chordal. It's quite big on the sort of Eddie Lang, like those sort of top 4 strings, chord solos, and then like lots of chromatic movement within voices, which is just insane. But that kind of thing is interesting me at the minute, which is kind of like taking the Western swing chord thing, but then just sticking it, put it on the top strings rather than the bottom. Put it on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
But from an attitude, somebody could look at something like that and go, yeah, but I don't want to, I don't really want to play that kind of music or whatever. But if there's something in that interests you, like I can take that and then go, if I just add a bit more colour, it's then, closer to something that maybe someone like Bruce Foreman would play.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And it's not that, I think there's too much kind of like, little walls for things. It's kind of, that's only good for that, that's only good for that, when really it's all just kind of music.
Yep. Yeah, and all your influences sort of come together and without you realising it and just make you, the unique person. Even if you've only ever heard 2 musicians and you've got a friend that's only ever heard 2 musicians, you're going to take different percentages of that musician and form them into your own sound anyway. So I think this kind of expanding your musical horizons, improving your musical diet, if you like, there's never something, it's never going to hurt you to do that. And one of the best things of bits of professional advice I can give to people, because I've taken a few guys under my wing over the years to help them with the transcription side of things and try and get them set up with transcription as a business. I've sent work their way and stuff, and I've had guys come back after doing a bunch of jobs and they're like, man, I really don't know if this is for me. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, I'm just spending hours and hours of my day transcribing things that I don't like. And it's like, man, you need to get rid of that mindset. If I think of my channel as being focused towards people that want to take music seriously. You want to not just play for fun, but maybe you want to take it further. Maybe you want to make some money doing it. Maybe you want it to be your career. And you don't have that liberty. You don't have the choice to just go, this is the one thing I do. I mean, you can. I've got friends that have just devoted themselves to playing metal, but then their job opportunities are virtually nothing. So as a transcriber, I don't have the liberty of just going, I don't really want to transcribe that unless I'm so busy that I can turn it down. I've spent hours transcribing things that I absolutely hate, but it's work, right? And doing those things improves my ear, makes doing those things easier the more I do those types of jobs. And then when I am doing things that I like, fantastic. But just kind of putting your mind into it and going, I need to take this seriously, I have to do it, is a great thing to do. And I'll be completely honest, sometimes it's doing those things that will introduce you to things that you didn't even realize will be huge for you 5 years down the road. 10 years ago, I did some Buster B. Jones transcriptions for a guy, right? And at the time, I didn't really like it. And now Buster's one of my favourite players. I did a bunch of Danny Gatton for someone when I just started transcribing, and I thought it was garbage. And like now I can just go here and go, Danny's one of my favourite players. Your ear takes a while to mature, and just sort of throwing yourself into these settings with an open mind. I was much less open-minded when I was younger, but is going to be massively beneficial to you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've found yourself in professional settings where you're playing things that aren't really your cup of tea, right?
I have. I've tried as wherever possible, especially in the if it's something that's new to me that potentially I'm not that interested in, is to go. I won't necessarily go home and listen to this or play this for pleasure, but what is it? What can I get out of this? Even things like, what's like a really obvious one, like the whole like Motown 2s and 4s thing. If I did that all the time, I might get quite bored, Yeah. But from in terms of arrangement and guitars, it's a really good thing to have under your belt. Just be able to hit 2 and 4s and have that sort of dimmer switch of it being really like, and then have it more of a snare with a bit of reverb on, like, dun, you know what I mean? Like, actually, taking the time to think about the details, and it makes, rather than going, look at this tune, it's just CNF forever.
Yeah.
You play My Girl or whatever. You can go, right, I'm really going to concentrate on where this lands and where this feels. And like, weirdly for me, it feels better if I feel like there's a bit of a bounce.
Right.
I don't think it actually changes the sound or anything, but it just feels like it's a bit better. But, taking the time to go, this is what I'm doing. How can I get the most out of it and do the best job that I can do at the same time? And then, everybody wins, really.
Yep.
And then you've got stuff to take it into a different situation that will get you there quicker. I think that's the thing, is being able to hear stuff and go, oh yeah, that's cool. It's a bit like that, a bit like that.
Yep.
It's like having like really powerful taste buds. If you eat something, it's like, oh yeah, it's got all these things in it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you can just sort of like hear these different things.
My wife with cinnamon, mate. She'll taste cinnamon in something that I love cinnamon. I don't even realize that I love cinnamon, right? I don't think I even know what cinnamon tastes like. I just like cinnamon flavored things, right? There can be just a sprinkle of cinnamon as a kind of side ingredient in something, and she'll eat it and go, oh no, I can't eat that, it's got cinnamon in it. Fair enough. That you've developed that skill. Good for you. I say that, and this is a massive aside. I feel bad for her because she lost her taste thanks to the COVID thing. So she's not been able to smell or taste anything for, I think, 10 or 11 weeks now. I don't think that's coming back. So, eat all the cinnamon that I make you eat now. Unlucky.
Damn.
But back to the music thing. No, I know what you mean. Like, I actually like what you said there when you're talking about the Motown thing. Just being able to talk about a genre like that and saying, oh, it's about that 2 and the 4. It doesn't have to be the thing that you love playing, but something about the music, having that broad taste thing, like the reggae thing. Too many people will be like, oh, when you play reggae, you're playing chords on upbeat, so I'll just play all these chords with upstrokes and then suddenly I'm playing reggae. And it's like, well, no, I think downstrokes work better for those things. I think the key to getting a good reggae sound is having a little bit of a higher action on your guitar and never, ever, ever fret the chord properly. You want to, it's almost like you're muting the strings, and there's almost a chord there, and it gives you more of a percussive muted sound than it does a chordal sound. Those are detail things, and I think those detail things are really, really important. Have you read any of the I can't even think who wrote them, the Gypsy Jazz books that are available on the what's that website called? JangoBooks.com. There's one on Gypsy Jazz rhythm guitar. That was what I got when I wanted to start looking into swing playing, and the amount of detail that's in that book. He's got the La Pompe rhythms transcribed, and they're identical, but he has them broken down by region. So like a German style La Pompe rhythm, a French style La Pompe rhythm, and notation wise they're exactly the same, but he describes the difference in them, and obviously there's audio for you to listen to, and it's just that level of fascination with the details of a genre I think is really cool. Certainly cool to me. Let's go on to the Western swing thing a little bit then. So you came to doing it because it was work, right?
Yeah, man. I was on the dole for 4 months after cruise ships, and this, it was. I don't even think the job was advertised as Western Swing at the time.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was like a swing, jazz, jive, vocal harmony group, I think is what it was advertised as, on a free sort of classified sort of like dark web thing of internet, which somehow ended up turning into a job. But yeah.
What was it when you started doing that? Like, if you were to give people the kind of inroad to the first few things that you heard that made you go, I really like this sound, I really like this style, like what would you say to people to go and check out?
What, like musical?
I'll give you an example. So, like, for me, the first time I ever heard the term Western Swing was on Brent Mason's instructional video, Nashville Chops and Western Swing. The second part of that, he picks up a Gibson Howard Roberts guitar and says, right, now let's talk about some Western Swing. And he mentions guys like Ernest Tubb, and then he plays a few licks. And as soon as he played that first lick, I went, wow, I've never heard a sound like that. I've never heard licks like that. It's jazzy, but there's something cool and country about it, and it swings, and I really like this. That was enough. That was a catalyst for me to go, I want to look into this style a little bit more. I want to go and check out some Spade Cooley or whatever. What was it for you that made you go, oh, this is kind of cool?
I think having a slight kind of connection with the sort of jazz and gypsy jazz kind of thing, because I think at that point my brain had its own harmonic ceiling, so it was kind of like, oh man, it's got this kind of like pumping rhythm thing to it. It seems really fun. It seems really like it's not. I think there's not that sort of same intimidation as if you're trying to go, right, I want to, how do I jazz?
Yeah.
And then, you put on some Charlie Parker or some, Kurt Rosenwinkel or something, you're trying to, and you're like, I don't know what I'm hearing or what I'm going to take from that. It's either too fast or it's too complex. Yeah. I'm not there, I'm never going to hear that or whatever. And the kind of simple forms and stuff as well, it was kind of like, it already seemed quite familiar because of some of the other things I mentioned before, with like the different styles and stuff. Yep. So I was like, oh man, this fits a nice little slot between all these things that I already kind of like. So I think it was more that really. It sort of made sense when I came across it. It wasn't like, I've got a really, oh man, what is this that they're doing? It was like, oh, that's cool. I'm just going to take some of the things I already know and do it like they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to throw in a little recommendation for people, actually, and it's probably a recommendation for you. You might not be familiar with this one. It's recommended to me by one of my students this week. There's a podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones.
All right.
Listen to it. I'm sure the guy that makes it is, I think he's David Allan Coe's son. There's only one season of it, right? But I was introduced to it maybe the end of last week, and I've listened to most of that first season already. He just does these kind of in-depth looks into artists or songs, and there's a full episode dedicated to Ernest Tubb and the tale of how he, despite being one of the nicest guys in the industry with nobody having a bad thing to say about him, the one time that he almost shot somebody at a record label for screwing him over, and there's a nice story that goes behind that. But they're great stories that kind of put you in the time, you know what I mean? Like, and hearing these stories and getting this idea of everything that was going on and why these things are relevant. When I hear tales like that, it makes me want to go back and listen to this stuff. It makes me interested to check this stuff out. There's an episode on Spade Cooley, and for those unfamiliar with Spade, many people would consider him to be one of the fathers of that Western swing sound. The King of Swing, he was called for a long time. Not as popular now, due to being a horrible murderer, but
kill his wife.
He killed his wife. Yeah. And again, but interesting and horrifying stories. Great podcast, well worth checking out. Great episode on Buck Owens and Don Rich, and yeah. So Cocaine and Rhinestones, go and listen to it. It's really good. Right, education then. So what are the pitfalls? Where are people going wrong when they're trying to learn new things? Like,
when they're trying to learn new things, I think partly is knowing where you're at is potentially a bit of a pitfall. I think people are very quick to look for new things when they might not necessarily have a full grasp and a full usage of, or a working knowledge, shall we say, of a thing that is maybe a couple of steps before. So it might be like, oh, cool, I can play that, what's next? Or cool, I can do that, what's next? But maybe something quite simple like
triads,
synchronization between the left, some kind of synchronization between the left and right hands, or time feel or something. It's it's all well and good learning new, more complex scales and trying to get into these new sounds, but if your time is a bit off, it doesn't matter how complex and clever the notes are. If they're not landing in the right place, the whole thing just topples. I think that's quite a big one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I've one of the I checked the SEO for what's effective on my channel and what people actually search for, and one of the keyword search that people go for is Levi Clay triads, because I've done a lot of stuff talking about and teaching triads. I think triads are a really valuable, obviously valuable source of musical information. It's the kind of fundamentals and building blocks of all Western music. And too many of my students are like, I want to learn to play jazz, and I'm like, okay, like what? And they're like, let's play ornithology. And I'm like, okay, let's take a look at that tune then. Right, just comp over this, just playing triads for me. What? Why don't I just play the seventh chords? No, just play the triads. Why can you just boil it down to triads and just play triads over it? Just play chordal triads over it? Why? Why can you not do that? Why is that a struggle for you? And if you can't do that, why do you think you're immediately ready to go, well, let's do sevenths, ninths, elevenths, altered chords, and let's do tritone substitutions? Building knowledge on shaky ground is always seems like a fool's errand to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think there's a realization to be had as well that you can't learn everything.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit like defeatist, but for instance, trying to absolutely master a thing or subject, you're still, you might, if I said to you, play me every version of a dominant seventh or ninth chord that you've got, you could go and jam with someone next week and they'll play a version of a ninth chord that you haven't played.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's really simple. I got that 15 years ago by listening to this song.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just can't. You have to sort of take what you can and keep it, and then sort of play around it. But I think, for me recently, it's kind of like I work better with smaller bits of information that I can then run with and get excited about, and that will lead me onto something else. Whereas if I try and approach something in a very kind of, right, this is what I'm going to study, and I'm going to, it sounds like I'm really scatterbrained. That's not what it is. But trying to go, right, I'm going to do all this thing. It's like, well, I could play around with one chord voicing and go, oh, that kind of, what if I'm doing that and I want to go to this chord or this chord? What wants to move? And just being more exploratory. I think that's kind of my thing, rather than being really sort of prescriptive. It's personality traits, man. It's different for different people.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of difficult to say this is the way. I can tell you what might not be beneficial for your playing, if you're doing it a certain way, whether it's a bad habit or, but it's one of those, it's kind of like, don't do that, but I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah. The old only a Sith deals in absolutes, which seems like a bit of an absolute, to be fair as well. So, one of my patrons posted on my Discord server today, it was a link to Martin Miller's Discord, and he a screenshot, and he said, the most intelligent question I've seen and best answer I've seen on Martin's Discord in months. And it was somebody asking about needing help with bebop scales, saying, oh, I'm struggling with learning how to improvise with jazz, should I get into bebop scales? And it's like, no, you shouldn't. The most misunderstood concept in jazz, lots of terrible sources of information, and too many people. It's the worst named concept in the world, bebop scales. Oh, cool! If I learn these, I can play bebop. It's like playing the blues, right? Oh well, I know the blues scale. I can play blues. No, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
This kind of trying to go further than you're capable of. It just seems foolish. I think listening to, I take it back to Martin Miller's autobiography, not Martin Miller, Martin Taylor's autobiography, where he talks about learning on cruise ships and things like that. He came up in a jazz world where it was pre-formal jazz education. He learnt to play jazz by playing songs with people. He learnt to play jazz by playing the songs that were popular in his house. And when you go, earlier than that, back to the early jazz guys, that's what they were doing. They were playing songs, right? It wasn't going into this genre because, this is a place where I can really, cut heads with people. This is a place where I can really show my musical prowess. It's wanting to play songs, and I'm having this revelation more and more so that the thing that I kind of neglected for most of my junior life on the instrument was the importance of the song, right? I grew up playing the rock and metal thing, so the rock riff, is super important. And in rock, sure, great singers, have lots of great singers, and we have great songs, sure. But very, very rarely do you have a great song in rock or metal where a lot of time and attention hasn't also gone into the music side of things, what the instruments are playing, right? You think of the greatest rock riffs of all time. And I think it's for that reason I hate radio. I hate rock radio. Listening to rock radio is the worst thing in the world for me, because you'll hear a song that you like and then you'll hear 15 that you think are garbage and you turn it off. I'd rather just put on an album that I enjoy. And what I find with Western swing, or what I find with country more specifically, is I don't have that. I don't think of, when it comes to a great country song, like, I don't go, okay, here's a list of 10 great country songs, so here's 10 great country riffs. It doesn't work like that. Country music isn't that. Country music is about the song. It's about a chord progression. It's about someone singing something. And that revelation that I need to be putting more time, more thought into harmony, into chord progressions, into melodies and how they relate to the chords that are going underneath. It's I know it sounds silly because, I'm in my 30s and I should have known this already, but the song is more fucking important than the guitar part, right?
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on the idea of harmony?
What? in what way?
I just put you on the spot there. It's just because I know, like, a huge part of what you've done. You did the Lick Library, your first beginning Western swing guitar. I think it was called something.
I did the 50.
You did
51 Western swing licks, which was interesting because I think Sam Bell had been in the day before me. So I'm playing these really small little snippets that are very descriptive over a chord.
Yeah.
And then I think Sam had been in the day before, here's lick 1, and it'd be 32 bar tapping lick with all the fingers.
Yeah, just
is that it?
A totally different approach. Totally Sam's product is more like 51 crazy etudes that you can learn, whereas you're 51 bits of vocabulary that you can immediately go out and use. But I guess what I'm saying is with that product, not the licks one, but kind of the licks one, because you said over very specific chords. You think more in terms of harmony, right? You're thinking of chords all the time. You're thinking of chord progressions. You'll listen to a song, and be it a Western swing song or a country song or a pop song, and there's more attention that goes into what's the chord progression here? What's happening here? Oh, we're on the 1 chord, we've gone to the 6. Oh, we've gone to the 2 chord, but major. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know harmony is obviously harmony very important. But yeah, talk to us about the importance of harmony. Do it. Go on, do it.
Well, I think about, I visualize the fretboard the same way that Tom and Beebs do. I think we've had this conversation before, which is the intervals thing.
Yeah.
Which it's a funny thing because I feel like there's all these different ways, but the notes are not going anywhere. So we have to have all these different ways of how our brain reaches those things. But so I see things as in intervals around a root note. And I kind of, the chord thing, the chord thing and the harmony thing, it kind of all merges together now. It's not like I've got these sort of grips. It's like if I play a G7, I know what each note of that chord is, and then I know if I want to move it somewhere else, it changes if I want to change the 5 to a 6, I can do that. If I want to change the 6 up to the 7, I can do that. It's not sort of it's not a lot of grips, but I kind of, when playing the Western swing kind of stuff, I probably do think more kind of triadic, if you like, just because of the chord progressions. A lot of the times it'll be maybe 1 chord, 4 chord, 1, 2 dominant, 5, 1, and then it might go 5 and then 2 dominant 5, and do you know what I mean?
Careful.
A lot of them are 4 chord songs.
Careful, you're talking a lot about functional harmony here, and I think if you talk about too much functional harmony, Tom and Beebs show up and get raging at you.
No, well, they probably rage at me enough as it is.
Yeah.
But no, it's I think like that all the time. I basically think about where I'm quite big into sort of momentum at the minute, which again I guess is sort of functional, but it's about where are we going and what can I do in between getting there, which is quite big with the Western swing chord playing thing, and a lot of the swing stuff anyway. It's kind of momentum,
chord motion.
But you'll hear guys playing, if it's just a 1 chord going to a 4, they'll they'll do all these like passing chords within their lines on the way.
Yeah.
It's a guy called Dave Biller, I think plays with Wayne Hancock, that does that stuff like really well. You kind of get this like it's like this endless kind of climb, and it's only one chord that's happening.
Yeah,
you know, and then he sort of resolves. But thinking intervals, pretty much thinking chords to some degree most of the time. I don't all of the time. It's not like I think some guys probably like thinking all the time. Sometimes it's like there's the shape. I kind of know where everything is. It's going to be not necessarily a lick, but it's going to be a collection of notes that I have already played before in various kind of formations, and then I'll sort of play around with that. It's kind of like I know everything in this little circle here is safe, and I'm going to play around with how I get there. It's a weird thing. Like I've been thinking about how my brain works just from some other podcast stuff recently, but I'm not 100% of the time thinking about every single interval, even though I know they're there.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm not completely switched off. It's like somewhere in between, which I think is kind of a nice place to be.
I know what you mean. It's a kind of the knowledge becomes so ingrained that you transcend thinking about it. You know what I'm getting at?
It sounds like a very kind of sort of spiritual way of putting it, but I'll take it.
But it's the same as like the way we're communicating now. And we're using words to communicate with each other. No real thought is going into the words that I'm using or how I'm going about saying it. When I ask a question, it's just intuitive that at the end of my sentence, my inflection will go up because that makes sense, doesn't it? You know, I put the question in there. There's no thought in it. It just sort of happens. And I think when you try learning a new language, I did Japanese in college. Every single word that comes out of your mouth, you're thinking about it. You're trying to process every last bit. Yeah. And it's just when you play music, as long as we played music, you hopefully break out of that. Hopefully.
Well, there's an interesting thing with that, with things like chord progressions. Like you said, you know, when you are learning a new language, maybe you are thinking about every single word that comes out of your mouth. And if you're new to kind of changes playing or whatever, and you see a 1-6-2-5, you might be thinking, I'm thinking the one, I'm thinking, you know, the 1-6-2-5, thinking all of those chords, and then you might sort of go, well, I'm not really going to think over the 1 and the 6, but I'll think over the 2 and the 5, and then maybe you just see that as a big chunk, and you know what works because you've played it enough times, and you don't have to think that much. You just see that as a big shape, and probably just think there's a couple of shades there, and that 5's going to take us back around. Do you know what I mean? Like,
just lots of different ways of thinking about it. Just play the blues scale over all of it. It's just another approach, but that's something I'll call upon sometimes if I'm playing over a 1-6-2-5. Yeah, play blues scale. Sounds bluesy, like it. Go on. I made this sort of metaphor example kind of thing the other day. I was teaching somebody that's talking about changing chords, like just a sort of beginner level, and I was saying, you need to be, well, the way you're right, you need to be thinking about what's coming. So it's like if you are doing hurdles, so you're running towards a hurdle, you're going to be looking at the hurdle, jump over it. Maybe you look at your feet while you land. As soon as you land and your head's up, you're just looking at the next hurdle. You're not thinking about all the running you do on the way. That's kind of like once you're in and you're safe, you're kind of like that. So the hurdle is almost beat 4 of a change into another. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I totally.
When do you think, and then when do you when is it a bit more automatic, and when can you be a bit more creative?
Yeah, it's the same skill with reading, right? When you first start learning to read music, you are reading every single note as you're playing it, and then panicking as you look to the next one and go, shit, what note is that? How long does it last for? But the better you get at it, again, it's just like reading whatever your native language is. We don't read the word we're reading 3 or 4 words ahead. We're reading a sentence ahead. We're like, and just letting that sort of happen very naturally as you get there. It's the same with changes playing. I think as you develop, you get better at playing it, you stop thinking about the chord change, an 8th note before it happens, and you're thinking about it a bar, 2 bars before it happens. And the better you get at that, the more you can do what you were talking about a second ago, which is playing towards that change, helping to emphasize the function in the harmony, which is cool. Okay, let's do the last subject type thing then. Transcription. How much transcription are you doing nowadays, Dan?
I did some the other week because I sent it to you.
You sent some to me, yep.
Yeah.
Dan sent in his homework.
Yeah. I'm planning on doing more at the minute. I'm trying to sort of do just like one, maybe like one chorus, or depending on what it is, one thing a week, and then I'm planning on putting like a little write up for myself, so that I can have the transcription, and then files one to this is what's going on, and then so I can just sort of take the cool bits, because what's happened in the past is you spend ages transcribing something and you go, cool, I've transcribed it, and then don't bother looking at it or analysing it or taking anything from it.
Story of my life.
You just you're more concentrated on the task than taking anything, if you see what I mean.
Solving the puzzle.
Yeah, I did. I had a bit of it wasn't really an argument, but it was an interesting moment with a piano player on a ship once, who was from, I think he was still currently at jazz school in America, and I was just sort of saying, I transcribed this lick from this solo, and he was kind of saying, you can't do that. I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? It's like, you can't do it. You have to transcribe the entire solo to know what the guy's saying. And while there is merit to that, there's also merit in, like taking something that you can manage and then, sort of doing something with that.
You can, I think you can zoom out from that perspective and just keep zooming out further and further and further. Because if you're going to go, well, to really get the context of that particular lick, you need to transcribe the entire solo so you can really understand the wider context of what he's saying. But then it's like, okay, well, should I zoom out further than that and transcribe every solo from the album? Because that might have influenced why he played the way he did on that particular track, because he wanted to offset he wanted that solo to sound a different way based on the track that he played before. He wanted, what I mean? Yeah. And then, really we should zoom out and look at a 10-year period of his career and see where this lick functions in his kind of development as a player and how his voice is changing over a period of time. Like, fuck off. If you want to transcribe just a lick, transcribe just a lick. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got for transcription was from you. We did it on one of the, I'm sure it was a Guitar Hour podcast, right? It was that idea of transcribing individual licks. It's something I do occasionally if I'm listening to a recording, walking around the shops listening to a Mel Haggard album or whatever, and I think there's a cool lick. I'll make a note in my mind, okay, the track I just put a video up of Okie from Muskogee Coming Home, there was a cool lick in there, I wanted to transcribe it, so I made note of it in my mind. I actually wrote it on my phone, transcribe this when you get a chance, and then I sat down and transcribed it. And the advice you gave is that when you do something like that, don't just write, cool lick at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Write cool lick at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I think that it's, a major 7 arpeggio starting on the flat 7 or whatever, or an augmented idea or whatever it is, because that's encouraging you to engage your ear a little bit more with the thing that you're transcribing before you do it. And then most of the time, you'll be totally wrong. You'll transcribe it and you'll go, wow, I was totally off base of why I like the sound of that lick. And it wasn't a major 7 arpeggio at all. But with more time, you start to put a little bit more thought into things when you're listening to them and identify why you like them. And that major 7 arpeggio played off the flat 7 of a dominant chord is something that Clint Strong does over almost every dominant 7 chord he plays, and it gives him those lines a real sense of jazziness compared to the context he's playing in. He's playing in a Mel Haggard band. It's like you don't expect to hear proper jazz chromatic vocabulary over country chords like that. But that's why I like it. And if I hadn't got that bit of advice from you of trying to identify what it was beforehand, I wouldn't be learning as effectively. So that's good advice. Go and do that. Everybody.
The book in question is actually here.
What the hell is that?
This is the book. This is the book that's got the that I spoke about on that original.
Oh, okay.
Original podcast. So this is. Where did I buy this? I think I might have bought this in Greece somewhere.
I was going to say
Turkey when I was
200 BC.
Yeah, it's got Greek philosopher Homer on the front. The word you speak is the word you will hear. But it's just gonna hang on.
Let's see if we can get a focus on that. Just about. Oh yeah, okay. Joe Pass. Does that say North Sea Nights?
That's what. Yeah. Yeah. It says if North Sea Nights. If I were about 6 minutes 51. And then I've got F sharp diminished, and then G, like G7, G9 sharp 11. And then I've put F blues ... next to it.
I thought the autofocus on my camera was bad.
This is a manual focus.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course, you're a prime lens.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so there's. I mean, I've got a tick next to them if I transcribe them. Actually,
right.
I don't know where they are now, but But I've even gone as far as I've got Miles Davis Star by Starlight, and then I've written intervals in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether I've had a guitar with me at the time, or if these are the answers or what, but there's loads in here, man.
It's just engaging your brain with the thing that you intend to do, in a way that I wasn't doing prior to taking on that methodology, and it's brilliant. Yeah, I like it.
I think the perk with writing something down, like writing down what you think it might be or what it sounds like, is that if like say it sounds like some sort of diminished lick, and then you find out once you've done the transcription that it's in a place that is not just over a straight diminished chord, you might then go, oh man, and then that might open up a whole other avenue. It's like, oh, I can put these sounds in this other situation, like the major 7 sort of from the flat 7, which is it's in the David Baker thing that after a few pages it's a cool sound.
Yeah,
I am a big fan.
Well, it's funny, like you're totally right. It's in the David Baker How to Play Bebop book. That would probably be the first time I saw that. But his inclusion of it and his explanation of it, it wasn't enough for me to immediately be able to use it. You know what I mean? His is when you're descending your bebop scale, when you get to the flat 7, you can ascend up a major 7 arpeggio, and then you can continue descending or ascending a bebop scale. It's a nice sort of transition in bebop scale vocabulary. That was very formulaic to me, whereas when I look at the way Clint's doing things, it's the way that major 7 arpeggio is being used, and those are always the things that are never right in my mind initially. It's so easy to go, oh yeah, cool, over a dominant 7 chord I'll do a tritone substitution, I'll play something off the flat 5, I'll think D flat 7 over a G7. It's all well and good to say I'll think D flat 7 over a G7, but just playing a D flat 7 arpeggio is nowhere near as cool as how a great player might play or think or spell something around that D flat 7 arpeggio. To me, that's the cool thing of that entire Western swing and like bebop country sound. That's why it appeals to me, because it's the specific ways that those players will outline a chord sound that is just, I'm going to say mind altering. That's probably being a bit dramatic, but it changes your perspective on the way you'll approach substitutions. For me, at least, that's I've always found
man. I think there's a thing. I'm trying to figure this out in my brain at the minute, but there is I feel like there's like a perfect amount of kind of self exploration discovery type thing with these concepts and hitting the books. There's seems to be like a middle ground that kind of works for me, and that if I'm going too hard on like looking for like a real system, a really economic way of doing things or rules, then I think the minute you start going that has to be that. Now obviously there are certain rules, like if a D major chord is a D major chord, but like,
or is it?
If you get too but if you get too kind of sort of literal with some things, I think you can miss. You can kind of miss. Like if I go, oh, that's a cool idea, I basically then not try and break it, but I go, how many different things can I do with that? Like how many different ways can I just play around with that? So I'm not only playing it the way that I first learnt it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm not just playing it that
the way the theory
example
book has
way.
It.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm going to play around with that, and then, oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Oh, that works better, but theoretically that's not right.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of
totally.
It's where are the the boundaries?
One of the most scathing criticisms that is possible to levy at somebody musically, and I've done it many times because I love it. It's such a brutal, mean thing to say. You can describe certain players as sounding like they've read every book about music that has ever existed, but they've never actually listened to any. And my playing has been like that when I was younger, and I've been developing, and I started to learn more about harmony. I've read all the fucking books. We're referencing like David Baker's How to Play Bebop, which is a book from the 70s. I picked up a random swing and big band guitar book that I have just next to me. I had a bunch of drum books delivered today. I just like reading stuff. I like absorbing information. But it doesn't start to come into play until you listen to music. You have to listen to stuff and sort of make that connection between the theory, the thing you've read, how the language might function, and then the real life application of it. Because you can't just play the scale, you can't just play the arpeggio. It's how you play the scale, it's how you play the arpeggio. And the books are never going to tell you how to play them. It's just, you can do this. Listen to people. Listen, engage those ears, transcribe. It's a great use of your time.
It's really satisfying as well if you like we're taking this example with the major 7 over a dominant thing. If you are then listening, like, so you've got your head around that and you've playing around with it, like, yeah, it's a cool sound. Then you go and listen to some music and you start hearing that in a context which you couldn't hear before because you weren't necessarily aware of it. That's super satisfying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh man, there's that thing.
It's like a weird, pathetic musical superpower that no one else understands. I often describe my musical superpower. While I'm doing this, you can think of what your musical superpower is for a nerdy thing, right? My musical superpower is I can hear things in slow motion. Like, because of the amount of transcribing I do, I can listen to something and hear it and see it written out. And that is the most useless power that you could ever have. If the world needed a superhero, I would like to think about how I would try and use that power for good. I don't think there is a good way that I could use that for anything. But that is definitely my musical superpower. And I wasn't born with it. It was hard work. A lot of work. You look like you don't have a musical superpower.
Well, this is the thing. Well, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because my mindset really with the music thing, guitar playing, is trying to be as versatile as possible, which kind of means you don't really jump out as any one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like the Western Swing thing is just because I happen to be playing in that band. I didn't sort of know that kind of stuff before the band. Maybe the superpower is being the kind of like salt and pepper guy. So if somebody goes, oh, I've got this, this guitar part, or I've got this part or this part. Can you, find something that works with it? Like just be the guy that's not necessarily writing the parts and writing the, putting the feelings in, but that's adding to it. Maybe that.
I like it. You are the seasoner. That could
the Seasoner.
That would be a great superhero name, the Seasoner.
Yeah. That's it. There's going to be a Netflix special, the Seasoner.
The Seasoner, and the first season of the Seasoner. I can be your arch nemesis in it. The Time Stretch. So that's what it'll be. Time Warp.
Time Stretch.
The Seasoner takes on Time Warp. Yeah, cool. So, all right, I'll close this up, and we can sort of talk a little bit more about where people can go and check you out. But I knew where this was going to go, and I knew how I would be sort of concluding this. Because I think it's very easy for people that don't know you, and the same with people that don't really know me or what I do. A lot of the thing that has found us our professional lives, the things that we do for work, has come from the behind the scenes work, right? It's building the skills up, putting in the time and taking the musical side of things seriously and putting in the work. It would be very easy for somebody to look at you and what little they know about you and say, yeah, but people only know him because he knows Tom Quayle. And and you could say the same about me. Like, I've only got where I was because I got to know Andy James, and Andy James hooked me up with Lick Library. And if it wasn't for Lick Library, I wouldn't be where I was, type thing. If somebody hadn't have introduced me to someone at Premier Guitar, I wouldn't have been writing for those guys for several years. And while that's totally true, I think the positive that you should be taking from that is, like, you wouldn't be as hooked up with someone like Tom if it wasn't for all of the work that you have done, all of the work that you've put in to get yourself to this level where you are, a peer of people that in the online world everyone seems to look up to. And everyone does look up to Tom, and rightfully so, great player, great guy. But I guess what I'm saying is, to any of my viewers, put in the work. Like, it's not circumstance. I haven't got to where I am because I happen to know people. I've got to know people because of the work that I've put into things. Put in the work, take things seriously, be relatively professional. I have to say relatively because it's me. Turn up on time, do a good job. It's very few people can go online and call people assholes and still have a career. I'm blessed for that. I appreciate that very much. I wouldn't encourage other people to do that. It's not a wise thing to do. It's lost me as many opportunities as it's gained me,
The thing with that and like knowing people and networking, yes, that is obviously a big part of the music industry. But you can be best mates with everyone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna stay afloat in that world. I mean, you see people in live streams or whatever trying to like tout for subs or whatever for a YouTube channel or whatever like that. And say, as an example, like one of these kids that's like, yeah, I really want to get 1 million subscribers on YouTube. If someone clicked the fingers and went, there's 1 million subs, now you've got to crank out high quality, engaging content every day for the next 5 years in order to stay afloat for that audience that you've now just asked for. Good luck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm struggling, and I'm at 34,000 subscribers. I think maybe 34. I want to hit that 100 so bad, so please do hit that subscribe button. But I'm probably, if my growth continues at this rate, which it probably won't, I'm 6 years off of that, right? But again, I'll keep putting in that work. I'll get there one of these fucking days. You have to put in the time, have to put in the work, and it's totally a good point. Like it's music is knowing people and it is networking. You do need to do those things, but you have to have the skills to back those things up. You can know all of the people in the industry, but if you're not very good, you won't get any work. Actually, one of the things that this is like I'll go into Levi Clay persona for this, because it is a persona. I know that there's a lot of people in this industry that fucking hate me. They really don't like me. There's something about me. I don't know what it might be. There's something about me that they really don't like, but they still need me to do work for them, and so they have me do things for them with gritted teeth. And that's a nice feeling, that kind of you'd love to tell me to go fuck myself, but I'm good at what I do, put in the work and be reliable and all of those things. So yeah, again, to anyone watching this, put in the work. Put in the work, go out there, make a name for yourself, do the hard work and achieve things. Make sense? Oh, totally slipped my mind. There is something else we do have to talk about. Video games.
All right.
Because Dan's one of my gaming pals. Dan is, I know the one that we certainly talked a lot about for a while was Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah.
And how we were both desperately trying to see all of the ends of that. I gave up on that. I mean, amazing game. And I constantly want to go back and play that game. Every time I see it, I've not deleted it off my PlayStation, so I see it all the time. I'm like, I'm going to give that another go. But all of the skills, my fingers are like jelly when I try and play that now. All the motor skills are gone. Are you doing much playing? Have you got anything on the go at the moment?
I downloaded Ghost of Tsushima. I've played a little. I've played a little bit. I've probably played like an hour maybe, but I feel like I have to earn. It's the self-employed mentality.
Sure.
I feel like I have to earn the time on it. So I've not really played that much of it. I'm sure I had something else on the go as well. I thought I had something on PC as well.
As indie titles, they're exciting, right?
Oh, Neon Abyss.
Don't know it.
You know that? It's like a new sort of roguelike thing.
I mean, that's the genre, man. I fucking love a roguelike.
Yeah. In terms of just jumping on, playing a bit, and then having that replayability.
Yeah.
It's. I think that's the.
I started.
That's the one.
I think it's called Moonlighter. Have you seen Moonlighter?
No, I don't think so.
So it's a dungeon roguelike type thing, where you play as a shopkeeper that lives in an RPG world. And when everybody goes to sleep at night, he has to go into the dungeons to find all of the things that he'll be selling in his shop. So gameplay-wise, kind of similar to the Enter the Gungeon type thing, but there's an economy thing to it. You find all of your loot and stuff, then you bring it back to your shop,
right?
And you
I know which game it is now.
Yeah, you have to price the things and be monitoring, what people are happy with price-wise and what's in demand and what's not in demand. You don't want to flood the market with certain items. It's kind of deep, but it's also kind of cool. And of course, Sekiro, which I'll have it done tonight. Like, I'm this close. I just need to grind out the last few experience points. But if anyone, like, talking about hard work, right? If anyone wants some hard work, that is a game that is rewarding levels of hard work. That is a game that you learn, you put in the time, and you might need to fight a boss 50 times. But every time you learn something, and that's that mindset of being willing to learn, being willing to put in the time. There's definitely better places that you can put in the time than sitting and playing your video games.
Yeah. Tom's into all that stuff. He's into Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's fun for me.
Yeah.
It's like...
It is when you beat the boss, and you don't like. It's like you totally do get this because in Gungeon you learn how to beat the bosses, right? You get better at that. The pigeon with the Gatling gun. I'm sure it's pigeon with a Gatling gun. That's like often a boss in the first level. You learn its patterns and you get more effective at beating it. Like I've got an entire arm tattoo of Binding of Isaac. Like I know every boss in that game and exactly how it functions, and I can beat it. You learn that thing subconsciously though. So you want to get to that stage when you beat a boss in a game like that where it's not oh fuck, I just managed to kill him, like last sliver of health. Like every single time when I've come up against a challenge in a game like that, when I finally beat a boss like that, it was effortless. I've got like all of my health supplies left, and because you've become a master of it. And it's I wanted to bring this up earlier because it's that we talked about performance anxiety. It's like a spin on the performance anxiety thing. It's that stress of being able to cope when you are under pressure. And when I'm recording guitar, when that red light is on, that's pressure. And the thing that always breaks me out of it when I'm recording now, or when I'm dealing with a boss on Sekiro, or whatever it happens to be, it's just going calm, focus. You'll be able to, you can process things, your reactions are improved, and that matters in music as well as when you're playing a game like that, right? My reactions have improved. I can hear things better. I can listen to what someone's doing. I can react. Actually, just after taking that big breath there, I feel so much more relaxed. The pitch of my voice has come down. I'm talking a little bit slower. I feel great after that nice relaxing breath. So go and play Sekiro. I mean, it will stress you the fuck out, but eventually you will. After I finished that, I went back to do my second run. I think I got through the entire game in less than 2 hours on my second run, something like that. It was very, very quick, and I'm just blasting through it because I knew how to play the game, which was a nice thing. So, yeah, that'd be my recommendation after that, or just Binding of Isaac. That's because one of the greatest games ever made. Anyway, Dan, where can people find out more about you? How can they support you?
I have like a lick thing on my website. It's just dansmithguitarist.co.uk. That will be having an overhaul at some point. New look, so it doesn't look like I just play swing. The thing that's on there is like a dominant 7 tasty licks thing. So it's more modern, if you like. If you look me up on the Lick Library website, I'll be there to search my name. I'm part of the Guitar Hour podcast. Find that on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all of the podcast places. Where else am I? Oh, Instagram at Dan.
I was going to say that's what I thought you would pitch first, because your level of production on your Instagram stuff is very high. So
yes, sorry, Instagram at Dan Guitar Smith. I do a mix of things on there. I'm trying out these learn these lick things at the minute and putting the tabs in the kind of story highlights thing. So if somebody goes through that process of finding that and looks at them, let me know if it works as a thing. I assume it works, but
you're engaging with, like, Instagram, of course, is I think the social media platform for the young person, right? Unless you're going to be doing TikTok, which is the even younger person. And I think the struggle with my YouTube channel probably comes from this idea that a lot of the content I put up is so unbelievably niche. Like, who really wants to sit and learn a Clint Strong solo? Really? Who really wants to learn that? I don't care that it's a small number. And I feel that the reason I don't put any time into Instagram is because all of the stuff that I'd post on Instagram would be like, hey, look at this cool little Danny Gatton thing. Yeah, I imagine all these 16-year-old guitar players in their bedroom looking for hashtag Danny Gatton lick or whatever. It's just no one's going to find any of my content. So, yeah. I'm glad that you're doing well on Instagram, though. I can't... doesn't...
I mean, I still haven't figured it out. Do you know what I mean? There's a small, there's some small sort of tactics and stuff with it. But you just got to be doing it all the time, haven't you? You just got to be like every single day, like.
Social media, how depressing. Dan, thank you very much for your time.
No worries, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, I'm going to roll my credits. So as always, oh no, my video's on crop. I didn't think about that. I'll have to move over like this. As always, a big thank you to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon. You can see some of the names scrolling below us. Your kindness, generosity, and support means a lot. If you would like to check me out on Patreon, of course, there is a link in the description. You can get your name listed here. You can have private lessons with me. You can join my monthly study club streams, which are a lot of fun. You can participate in my transcription challenges, or you can just join my private Facebook group or my Discord server and engage and have a good time there. If that doesn't appeal, you can also head on over to Amazon. Again, link in the description. You can check out one of my books. There's some of them there. My hand's just gone off screen there. But yeah, that is always a massive help. There we go, help. Dan, thank you very much for your time. It really does mean a lot.
No worries.
As always, you can click this button up here to check me out on Patreon. I mean, I say that wasn't working when I did the last video, so maybe there's a button there, maybe there's not. Subscribe by clicking this button down here, and you will see 2 of Dan Smith's videos here and here. Please do go and check him out. Give him some love and support. He didn't recommend checking out any Swing Commanders albums, which is a shame, but they are on Spotify, so go check out some Swing Commanders.
That too.
Goodbye, everybody.